am intelligent and creative. I am bold and determined. I rely on teamwork, and I am accountable. I am a competitor who will defend my territory. I love to play and will never give up. I am committed for life because I am a Raven.
And welcome to Thursday Night Live, everyone. It's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Ottawa, and we are delighted you could join us from wherever you are, and hope you can tune in every month as we shine a spotlight on the high-impact players and topics relevant to Carleton Athletics to support student athletic excellence. Before we get started, let's first take care of some important housekeeping items. First, Carleton University acknowledges the location of its campus on the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation. It's also important to note, Carleton University is profoundly saddened by the discovery of 215 Indigenous children's remains at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. In remembering these children, we are once more aware of the part that educational institutions played in the attempted assimilation of Indigenous peoples and the destruction of Indigenous families and communities. The Carleton community stands in solidarity with Indigenous communities, students, faculty, and staff as we remember the survivors of the residential school system, and with the families of those whose children never returned to them. Our thoughts and prayers are with those affected by this tragic finding, and campus flags have been lowered to half-mast until June 8, representing 1 hour to honor the spirit of each child. Now, as we turn our attention to the program, Winnie Corn-Miller is predisposed and will not join the program this evening. However, we'd like to honor Winnie and thank her for her contributions and look forward to her joining again at a later date. And thank you for her contributions to the Ravens and women in sport with this short video.
At the best of times, I was different. At the worst of times, I was a problem. But I promise you, I was never boring.
She was a great athlete, but that's only part of what she brings to the table. She brings her impact upon her people and her community and her culture, try to break down some of the barriers and bridges that exist in our society to make it a better place.
There wasn't any space in sport for someone like me. I had to fight for it. I had to fight stereotypes and intolerance.
She never backed down. She never backed off. That's the one thing I noticed about her. She's pretty tough.
My mom said, I remember when you first said you wanted to go to the Olympics when you were 8 years old. And I got down on my knee and I looked you in the eye. I said, you can do it and I'll help you.
The basis of our culture is that we're supposed to settle things through sport. That's why I helped her so much in it. I saw what it was doing for her.
I loved showing the world what my people could do. I loved showing how tough Indigenous women were, how amazing we were. I thought of all of my ancestors that came before me. I wanted to make them proud.
And now to speak to the agenda. Please let me take a moment to introduce our very special guest host, Roberta Drummond, to the program. Roberta personifies leadership in varsity athletics and is the current captain of the rugby team's women's side. Roberta also balances a rigorous Bachelor of Science program in biology, and all the while prioritizing time to give back as a proud Raven and sit on Varsity Council as the chair of the Gender and Equity Committee. Thanks for joining us again, Roberta, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Trevor. Always a pleasure. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. To start the night off, I'd just like to go over the agenda. The first conversation is going to be with our athletic vice president, Jennifer Brenning, which will be between me and Jennifer. Our next thing on the schedule is an interview between Jeff Morris, our old crow, and our brand new football coach, Nadia. After that, a celebration of Ravensboard business leaders with Cheryl Hunt, and a congratulations announcement, an athletic update, and at the very end, of course, we have a questions and answer session if anyone has questions for the speakers. On that note, I would like to take this time now to introduce Jennifer Brenning. Jennifer Brenning is the Assistant Vice President of Athletics at Carleton and boasts a 34-year career in Canadian university sport and has been at the helm through colossal growth, change, and championships at Carleton for the last 16 years. Before coming to Carleton, Jennifer spent time down the canal at another university, which we shall not name, and as well 11 years previously at the youth sports, formerly the CIAU and CIS, coordinated international and national programs, including 7 World University Games, rising to acting CEO and Vice President, Research and Compliance during the transition of the organization to Toronto. Jennifer has dedicated her life's work to university athletics. Jennifer has been the chair of the OUA Finance Committee and currently resides on the committee and has worked with University of Vermont, Concordia, and Saskatchewan to review the programs while acting as host chair for several youth sports national championships, including soccer this year at Carleton. We are lucky to have Jennifer at the helm, and I'm honored to welcome her to the program. I can't think of a better role model for young women looking for a career in sports. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you, Roberta, for that very nice introduction.
Of course. And we've known each other for about 5 years, but more of a standing in line at its importance in athletics together, kind of game day, see you around kind of capacity.
Are cheering you on the sidelines.
Of course, yeah. I'm very interested to know more about your career. I was one of only 9 female athletic directors in the entire country. How did you get to the point you are at now, and where did you get your start in high performance?
Well, it's a long history, as you just described, of 34 years in university sport. But I'll try to be very brief on my moments, my journey, which is never a straight line. I moved to Ottawa with my mother and my brother when I started high school in grade 9. And so at that time, I didn't have many friends in high school. As you know, it's tough coming into high school, not knowing anyone. So I spent all my time in the gym, even intramurals at lunch, because I didn't want to go to the cafeteria. So sport really helped me through high school. I joined every single team, basketball, volleyball. I ran on the track team, cross country team. So I really took my interest in sport in high school. And then when I was applying to university, I really wanted to go to university. My mother was a single mother. We were living in community housing, and my mother was trying to make ends meet, but I really wanted to go to university. So I applied to Thunder Bay, Lakehead for forestry and UNB in forestry because I really wanted to work outside. And I thought, well, I better have an option for Ottawa, staying in Ottawa. So I applied they had a phys ed human kinetics program at the University of Ottawa. I didn't have any idea what kind of career you could have having a human kinetics phys ed degree. So when I had to stay in Ottawa because of finances, I took human kinetics. And in my 4th year, I had an opportunity to do an internship with Athletics Canada. I had no idea that all the national sport organizations were actually situated in Ottawa. At the time, they were in 333 River Road. And I did my internship there, and I fell in love with sport administration. I was able to coordinate a coaching clinic in Atlantic Canada as an intern, and they sent me to Atlantic Canada to organize that. And I just love the whole process of planning an event, delivering the event, and then getting to meet all the coaches. So it was the start of at Sport Admin. I didn't get a Sport Admin job right away. I actually worked at the Canadian Human Rights Federation first, and then a program opened up with the federal government for new graduates to work in sport. So I applied, and I started my first job in an NSO with Ring at Canada as their communications coordinator. So I was writing their newsletters and planning their press conferences and things like that. And then I applied, a job came up at, it was called CIAU at the time. And we were all in the same building. So all sport organizations, including CIAU, were in the same building. So I literally, when I got the job as national program coordinator, I walked down the hall. And then at CIU, I was there for 11 years, and I got an opportunity to travel all over the world, coordinating Canada's participation in the World University Games. I got to meet some incredible athletes, including Marnie McBean before she became an Olympic medalist. And an interesting story, when I was in Buffalo, one of the basketball athletes had lost their accreditation, so I had to go pick him up. bring him to get his accreditation and bring him back to the practice venue. And later on, I thought, wow, he's a really good player. They went on to the gold medal match against the USA. A guy named Steve Nash was the person that he wasn't famous at the time, but I got to drive him back and forth from the accreditation center. He was very quiet, by the way. Anyway, so I had my career at youth sport. I got to travel all over the world, which was amazing. And then Luc Gelino recruited me to the University of Ottawa to work with him as assistant director. And then Drew recruited me to Carleton. And so here I am 16 years later. The influencers have been some really incredible mentors along the way, women that I will always cherish in my career. Barb Mullally was an athletic director at UPI, took me under her wing. Liz Hoffman at the University of Toronto was always looking out for me. So I had some really good influencers that helped me along the way.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That is crazy. I had like a little bit, of knowledge about your past career, but that's just wild. Wow, Steve Nash. Okay. I'm glad you chose Ottawa. Going off that, your extensive resume is an impressive feat for anyone, male or female. Throughout your career, I would imagine that you were in a lot of situations where you were probably the only woman in the room. How did you kind of handle this? And do you have any advice maybe for young women looking for a career in sport?
Yeah, so I would say sports come a long way in some regards and in others not. When I was starting my career at CIAU, which is now youth sport, the whole board was a board of men. The topics discussed were mostly football. Very little was discussed in terms of women's sport. And at that time, there was no women's rugby and there was no women's soccer being delivered in youth sport. They came on later. Women's soccer was added as a women's sport in 1987 and women's rugby 1998. So, how I navigated that was I got to know people. Some of the men in the room became my friends. I felt I had to work hard, prove myself in order to get the respect. Respect doesn't come easily. You have to earn it. So I just, worked really hard and tried to demonstrate that I was competent and I could do the job. And then having friends that could help navigate things around the board table. But I can tell you, some of the women at the time really changed the organization, and I got to watch that. Wendy Bedingfield, who was a director at Acadia, and Kathy McDonald from Concordia, literally led the charge to change the organization to have women have the right to vote at the AGM. So we had a bylaw passed, and this is early in the mid 90s when there was no women in the room, and they had a motion where you had, in order to have 2 votes, one of the votes had to be a woman. And so that was pretty groundbreaking at that time. And the other thing they had passed was a representation on committees. So you had to have a minimum of 40%. And so the men actually couldn't vote against it. They were voting on the motion, but they framed the motion in such a way that the men couldn't vote against it. It was brilliant. So I got to watch all of that. And the other was the OUA was for men, and the OWIA was the women's organization. And there was a whole amalgamation of those 2 organizations in the 90s, and I got to be a part of that. So,
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So varsity athletes pretty much only know you kind of as the athletic staff that sits upstairs. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe walk me through kind of a day in the life of what you do at Carleton?
It's no day is the same, and every day is different. So I can't really talk about any particular day. The season is in cycles, as you can appreciate, and every day is different. And I would say every cycle is different, but it is a cycle. And so right now we're actually focusing on planning for the fall in many ways. When you look at our COVID year last year, a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty. Every day we were trying to figure out what to do. And we're doing that now as well as we try to reopen again and bring you back to train and back to compete in the fall. So there's lots of factors involved. And then we have the whole recreation side and facility development. So working on the new wellness hub, which is a new building. I'm involved in that. Working with the rec side, trying to bring the recreation programs back now and really build we're an ancillary service, so we need the revenue to operate. So I'm also involved in the fundraising aspects. So every aspect is different, and your days can turn on a dime when there's an issue or there's a crisis, and that's all consuming. So I can't really describe a specific day because there's so many elements every day, and every day is different.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm sure it gets pretty crazy up there. I can only imagine. So talking about, returning to train, how has the COVID-19 pandemic sort of shifted your focus? Like, how did you lead through all this uncertainty? And then the second part of this question is, what are you most looking forward to in September, and why is it rugby?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest challenge through this pandemic has been really keeping the staff and community engaged. It's been very challenging. It's been very hard on people. And what I realized last summer was when I came back, we delivered summer camps, and we were one of the few organizations in the only Ontario university to deliver summer camps. But I was walking around looking at the children when we were delivering that camp, and the smiling faces of the children being with other children and being with the camp counselors really demonstrated to me how important that program was to our community, or is to our community. We're still looking to deliver it this summer. And then in the fall, when we came back and I walked around and saw the students and the staff and the student athletes training, and how happy everybody was to be back. It's so important for people's mental health. So I think it really hit home how important our job is. I didn't really see it as clearly as I do now. And what I'm looking forward is coming back to see our students, our student athletes back on campus, watching sporting events, and delivering our programs. So I'm really looking forward to seeing people. I think most people are looking forward to seeing other people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't wait to be back on the field. So as a leader and visionary for university sport, what do you think the future of youth sports looks like? With the addition to skateboarding into the Olympics and kind of the explosion of esports, do you think youth sports youth sports will kind of follow suit? Or
I'm not sure about youth sports. Some of these new sports, certainly there's facility skateboarding and rock climbing. You need the facilities for those things. But I do think we're going to look at new opportunity for students as things change, right? We did, as you said, esports. We would never have done that if not for the pandemic. It was something that was on the side of Cheryl's desk, and she talked about it one of the Thursday Night Lives, how it came to life because we were looking to do things online. But I think there will be opportunity for new programs and recreational programs. In terms of the future of youth sport, my hope is that we don't try to compete with the NCAA. Like, I think we have something really unique and special with our student athletes. I don't think we tell our story collectively well enough about what we deliver and how excellent our student athletes are. So I would hope that we can really define better what we're delivering, and the quality of the programs that we have that's really relevant and respected and recognized by corporate Canada, by the media, by general sport fans. So that would be my hope, is that we can I talk about packaging, but marketing our product in a different way that really demonstrates the quality of the student athletes that we have.
I really like that idea of being like very authentically,
Canadian
youth sports. Yeah, I really like that idea. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we keep trying to think, oh, can we be the US? And we'll never be able to be the US. And I don't think we should try. I think we should really be unique and talk about what we do, and that's students, athletes.
So last question before I let you go. This is, kind of a hot topic. With the increasing demand for equity, for women in sport, what do you think the next steps are for youth sports to, better remove these barriers that their female athletes are currently facing?
So I did talk about participation. So I think we did a lot on having more participation opportunities for women in youth sport. What we have not done is, and I don't know why, the leadership roles are the same statistics today as they were 15, 20 years ago. So we haven't moved the needle on leadership. And I'm not sure, there's obviously barriers there. And coaching and officiating in athletic director positions, those kinds of things. So certainly we need more women in leadership. The other is funding. I would say some of the schools are doing really good job, and you pointed out Guelph. I think their initiatives around raising money for women's sport is excellent. Male sport has a lot more. They have a lot more history, so their alumni, they have a deeper alumni to draw on for extra things, and I think we need to help the women on the fundraising side. OUA has done a policy on gender equity in terms of athletic scholarships. You need to give it's a 10% corridor of compliance for athletic awards. So we have to be 50-50. And I think that policy should be nationwide, not just in the OUA. So there is certainly a lot of work still to be done. But I think we came a long way on the participation side.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer all these questions. And it was great getting to know you on a less game day style kind of level. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roberta. Good luck with your training.
Thank you. On that note, we're now going to move on to Jeff Morris and his interview with our brand new female football coach. Just to kind of give you a background on Jeff, he's an old crow and a familiar face on this show. Jeff Morris played for the Ravens football team for 5 years, from 1982 to 86. He is one of only a handful of players to be named a conference all-star 3 times, and he was the Ravens' all-time scoring leader in Ravens history from 1985 until 2017. After several pro tryouts in Canada and the US, Jeff played more than 150 semi-pro games south of the border, was a 2-time semi-pro All-American, and he was a member of the Lockport Invaders national championship team. Post-football, Jeff is a media expert running a family newspaper business and was a brand manager at Dallas-based Pinnacle, a management consultant for the sports division at Shop at Home TV Network in Denver and Nashville, and a vice president of marketing at Pacific Trading Cards Incorporated in Seattle. He was also an NHL columnist for ESPN.com and was a regular guest as a radio personality on Fox Sports Radio. Jeff, it's all you.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Roberta. Really appreciate it. And we're very privileged to have Nadia Doucoure joining us tonight. Nadia was recently hired as the first female football coach in Carleton football history. She's originally from France. She played high-level flag football, rugby in France. She coached football in France at an elite level. She became the technical advisor of France's American Football Association, and she moved to Canada and has been involved in the sport in both Saskatchewan and Ontario, playing, coaching, and officiating. So Nadia, thanks for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Bonsoir, Jeff. Very honored to be interviewed by you, because when I see you all, I'm just like, wow.
Yes, I'm in my 45th year of enjoying my career at Carleton. But the first thing I wanted to ask you about is you grew up in France. Very unusual to become involved in football in France. And how were you first, you're a little girl in France, how were you first exposed to American football, and what made you become interested in it?
So I will never imagine that I will tell my story. I'm coming from a sports family. So my dad is a soccer player and is a soccer coach right now. My mom used to drag us to the tracks and field every 2 weeks. So we used to be on the field. So my curiosity one day, so imagine in my town, we have the new O train, brand new. I took the O train just to see, and I recognized something that I really knew, which was a spotlight. When I saw that spotlight, I was like, oh, I don't know what sports are playing there because I know where the soccer is, I know where the thing is. I want to see. So my curiosity, I went there and I was like, oh, what's that sport? Why they have? And this is how I end up in football. That is a true story. That is a true story. And that's why I said I can believe that I'm saying that now because it was like, whew, 2001.
Now, when you came to Canada, you had experience at multiple number of levels in France. And when you came to Canada, you immediately became involved in football over here. What was that transition from European to Canadian football like? And as a woman in the sport, did you garner as much respect right away in Canada as you'd had in France?
I will say yes, definitely. Even when I was in training, that's why I said to Steve, I didn't have that look, and not just with the Ravens teams, but even on training, I know that I met a couple of guys only from football until January 2021, when I met women actually in football, as well as you said, in Europe, football, it's not football. Football is soccer. So every time you have to repeat yourself, that's not the one which is round, that's the other one. Every time you have to repeat that. Then in France, we use American football instead of just football to actually make the comparison. And when I came to Canada, you coming, as you said, with my background, and my passion is still football. So in my life, I had more than 12 years that my job was actually full-time in football. And then I changed when I came to Canada, but I still have that in my luggage. So guess when I came here, I typed right away when I was in Saskatchewan, where is the first football club around? There is any flag, anything that I can help. And that's how I end up with the Valkyries, and as well as what type of certification can I do as I came here? Because I already have my certification in France, so I want to see what's the equivalence to be able to coach here as well.
Have you found, now I'm a referee in Ottawa, and I've noticed over the years we have more and more young women becoming interested in officiating football, also coaching football. Have you seen since your time in Canada that more and more women are stepping into what was traditionally a men's or boys sport?
I will say yes, definitely. And I think, the reason why is because when you see somebody who looks like you, who is a woman, it helps you to do that steps. I didn't have the chance when I was young to have somebody who showed me as a woman what to do, what to not do, how to do it. And that's why I'm very proud now that I can show for the future generation, and I can train them, and then anything like that. That's awesome. Now we're in 2021, right?
Now, you were hired at Carleton as an assistant coach. You're an assistant offensive coach, assistant receivers coach, and you're hired based on your background and your ability and your resume, not because, hey, let's find a woman here. But at the same time, saying that, you are going to be a bit of a trailblazer, and a lot of people will be watching you, and some skeptically, some admiringly. How do you feel about being a trailblazer for women in university football?
I feel good. And I don't feel pressure because that's my character, is I like to do things well. And I always learn like this with football. So listening, collaborate, and then do your job. That's how pretty much how I do. And yes, there is pressure. People won't be happy. People will be happy. But we're not here to please everybody. We're here to please the players and make sure that they have the best ability during the year they're with us, actually.
Can you give us an idea of what your responsibilities are going to be, say, during practice, after practice and then also on game day?
Yes, I have everything except game day yet. So as we talked with Steve and the whole staff, we're gonna have a, like when I say game plan, we're gonna have a planning every week. We're gonna have a routine. So my job is to be with UC. If like my main job is to be with UC and to plan the practice, then helping on the practice. And if, for example, any other coach needs help, I can help out as well. For example, as special teams, I can work with a spy as well. We haven't discussed about game day yet. I'm not going to lie. Better to say the truth. But for sure, we already discussed about it though with Steve, that I won't be a spectator during the games, and I won't be able to be a spectator because I don't like that.
And a lot of responsibilities on game day happen after the game. It's getting into the film room and breaking down things. I've heard you have an exceptional technical background. I mean, I still have my Atari Pong hooked up to my TV, and I play Space Invaders. But it's very, very complicated now. But are you going to be involved in the video and film side of things?
I wish to, as well as we were talking about. So first time we met with Steve, we were talking about an app that I used when I was in France with my flag football teams and my football teams, which is Playmaker. And I was surprised because I used that like 12 years ago, and we're going to use that. So I'm very happy that we're going to use it because it's going to level up the way that we're doing things. And even instead of doing it in PowerPoint, which was a long time ago. My technical abilities, I think it's like football, and I will always say something about life is you have to be updated, which is in football, which is in life, which is everything. You need to be updated. I know sometimes it's hard because we've aged, you know, the memories and everything, but I think we should keep updated in every way. Like that's how I had that transition between American football and Canadian football, because as soon as I came here, I actually seen, because I knew already the differences between American football and Canadian football, but it's different to see on paper than to see with your eyes and actually practice it and then train as well.
And one last thing, how excited are you going to be to step on the field for that first game? And what will that first game personally mean to you?
No voice. That first game, I think it will mean a lot because it's not only me, it's after the pandemic, everybody will have the same energy in terms of playing, coaching, ref, and fans. Everybody has the same energy. And I think I'm already in that energy, so I will definitely fit there. Proud because that'll be the first game of myself stepping as a coach, but as well as representing football and women's across the country as well.
Well, Nadia, we wish you the best of luck. On behalf of the Old Crows, I'd like to welcome you to the program. And I hope the day comes when we can look at you and not say, there's a woman coach. We look at you and say, there's a really good football coach. We hope we get to that point too. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to throw things back to the heart and soul of the Carleton Ravens women's rugby program. Roberta, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. And Nadia, I cannot wait to meet you. Football and rugby, our team rooms are beside each other down Varsity Hall, so I'm sure we'll run into each other a lot, so I can shake your hand and finally get to meet you. To move on to our next segment, I now have the pleasure of welcoming an amazing woman that does so much behind the scenes at Carleton Athletics, and someone who I've recently been able to call a mentor, as someone who shares the same fiery passion as I have for women in sport. Cheryl Hunt is Carleton Athletics marketing guru and is celebrating over 20 years in sport marketing, the last 9 as assistant director, marketing and brand strategy for Carleton Athletics. Credited for launching the Raven Sport Business Club, Cheryl is also currently spearheading a massive Carleton loyalty branding exercise through the new Ravens Ring initiative. Proud Carleton alum, Cheryl earned her degree in Women's Studies, heads up the Gender and LGBTQ plus Equity Committee with myself, and recently completed a diploma in Diversity and Inclusion from Cornell University. Cheryl?
Hi, Roberta. Thanks so much for that beautiful introduction. And trust me, I've enjoyed our new relationship just as much as you have. So I'm here today to talk to you about women in sport, but more on the sport business side. So it was awesome to hear from Nadia on the sport side of business. The sport side of sport, but behind the scenes, I'm certainly not alone, and certainly even not alone in terms of my gender. There's many of us that are behind the scenes, sort of making different things happen. And there is a lot of, one of the reasons we created the Raven Sport Business Club is so that we could sort of introduce a number of different people to all of the various opportunities there are to work in sport. And so I just sort of wanted to introduce you to some of our athletic leaders that we have behind the scenes that maybe some of you know and some of you may not know. And of course, for today, we are focusing on our female leaders that we have. We'll sort of, obviously, you've already heard from Jennifer and featured on this particular slide. We're showing Yolana, who heads up, is sort of Jennifer's right hand and heads up the finance arm of and operations of the department, and Sheila Ann Newton, who takes care of all of our athletic services, and Rebecca works with Yolana in the finance. But for the purposes of today's meeting, we're going to jump into our very newest member of our staff. I believe Nadia, Shannon might even be newer than you. And she recently just joined our team started off on a part-time basis, and now just joined our team on a full-time basis. And so we sort of thought we would introduce everybody to Shannon. Many of the people I believe watching will be interacting with Shannon, as she's our new ticket and student engagement specialist and a woman. So, so other than state the obvious, Shannon, I just have a couple questions for you today.
Yeah.
Obviously, the focus of today is women in sport and leveling the playing field, and in particular, thinking about women on the sport business side of things. What obstacles do you see facing women in sport today?
This is a great question because I just graduated from Carleton, and in my last semester, I actually took a class called Sports and Politics, where we really dived into all the issues in sports right now. And there was a whole week dedicated to women in sport. So there are a multitude of barriers that female sports professionals experience, such as the perception of women in the media, inaccurate representation, and the inability to progress within their careers. So in the research that we looked over, and something that I think we can all see, is that women are subject to inappropriate or stereotypical media portrayals and objectifications, while simultaneously experiencing a lack of respect from the general public and male peers for their professional skills and knowledge. Women are also subject to considerations when it comes to their career, such as how they'll balance a work-family life, while it's not usually considered when hiring a male for a position. So as well, sports activities and professions are controlled, operated, and dominated primarily by men, which has resulted in women adapting their image and persona to appease this narrative. So it sets the example that for women to be successful and accepted, they must fit into this narrative of masculinity within sport.
Yeah, even as women, we tend to even internalize sort of the male normative aspect to professional behavior, certainly in all walks, not unique to sport. So in keeping with the theme of the day, when it comes to leveling the playing field, what do you think would be, there's a multitude of steps in dismantling a thousands of years patriarchal sort of worldview. But what do you think would be a way that we could start to level the playing field as it pertains to women in sport?
For sure. And I'm happy you asked that, because in that same discussion that we had in this course, we also discussed the virtuous cycle of sport, specifically how mass participation and encouragement of it reaps better athletes in the future. And within that as well, we discussed how it can promote inclusion, diversity, and equality. So through that, by encouraging females to participate at a grassroots level and at a younger age through this virtuous cycle of sport, we also increase their participation in sport which will give them a more accessible path to the boardroom as well, not just as athletes, but also in a business career within sports by normalizing and increasing that visibility. But while we increase visibility, we also need to improve the portrayal of women in sport, like I previously mentioned. So, in my opinion, the more female athletes, as they achieve great things and other women and girls witness this, they're more likely to recognize their own abilities, confidence, and strength through that, and more likely to enter this profession as well. So, but in order to do that, we need to change the content that passes that visibility gate. And in order to do that, we need to change the gatekeeper of that.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw throughout the conversation we were having earlier that Roberta put up in the comments. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So certainly representation, and but more specifically, how that representation looks. Just representation on its own is not enough. But I fully agree with what you're saying. And thanks very much, Shannon. And I'm delighted, obviously, to welcome you to not just the athletics team, but specifically my team. And so thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I think now we'll just introduce the balance of our female leadership that we have working busily behind the scenes. So we have Erin Mazeros, who's recently taken over the helm in terms of running the Welcome Center, Kim McWaters and Amarpreet, who I believe you guys would both be familiar with, or many people on this call would be familiar with from our alumni office, and Nadine and Gabby from our athletic therapy. So again, it just shows the full gamut. With all of these women, we're showing finance, marketing, merchandising, ticket operations, fan engagement, which also in our case includes alumni and student engagement, sales, fundraising, administration, athletic therapy, athlete services and support, client services and customer service. There are a lot of jobs in sport, and specifically, of course, for women. And naturally, this is off the field of play. And that is, as I was saying earlier, it's one of the reasons why we started the Raven Sport Business Club, which is heading into its, we're now heading into our 5th year, which I think sounds crazy because I feel like it's still very new. And we did not have a president of our club last year, being a pandemic year. We just struggled to keep it together, to be honest with you. But we're very proud to announce the new president of our Raven Sport Business Club. It's Carrie Branken, and I think I said Carrie. I'm sorry, it's Corey Branken, and so she's our 4th president and our 3rd female president. So I know Jennifer earlier was alluding to lack of leadership in particular, and how that hasn't changed. And when I did my degree in women's studies, not enough things have changed since the mid 90s. But so we're at 75% in female leadership. In that end, it's much like Nadia's hire, and we didn't hire Corey or anybody else because they were female. It's just they were the most competent hire at that time. And so we're really excited to see what Corey's capable of, and keep introducing all the students, including females, to all the various opportunities there are in sport, and hopefully helping to, dismantle some of the barriers. So welcome, Corey. She's our one to watch, I guess, when we usually send out sport news prior to a game. And so for right now, we'll be keeping our eye on you. And now I have the delight to throw it to, maybe Jen's aware, maybe she's not, but my very first in my 20 plus sport career boss. And furthermore, I never even had a colleague that was female. And her mentorship has literally meant everything to me. So back over to you, Jen, for an update.
I think, thank you so much. It's so wonderful. And Shannon, you're so articulate. My goodness, you're going to go places. So you and Roberta. And thank you, Cheryl. When Nadia was talking about keeping updated, I think she was talking about the older people. That was me. I'm afraid of technology, right, Cheryl? The Twitter. Anyway, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us this evening. You've got me back again, leveling the playing field for women in sport. And we heard some amazing stories and from our women leaders. As Cheryl alluded to, we have about 20% of women in leadership, so we still have a long way to go, although we're making a lot of progress on the participation side. As you know, the the province closed Ontario down on April 1st, and we actually shut down, and we have not been back in the office since, although Cheryl snuck in today. And so we were quite surprised when the province came back with a 3-step reopening plan. We were actually hoping to be back open in early to mid-June. With this 3-step plan, it's going to be a longer process. We'll be outdoors, allowed 10 outdoors as of June 14th, moving to 25 people outdoors only on July 5th, and not being able to open really indoors until July 26th or 28th. And that's the current plan, although the province is talking about potentially moving up those timelines. So as we have all year, we're creative. We're a creative bunch. Our team have been very creative. We're looking to move our fitness center outside, and we're looking to move the high performance center outside. So we have a tent that's coming and being delivered for the high performance center. And we're looking at using the alumni hall, the overhang. If you've gone out towards the ice house, there's an overhang there, and putting our fitness center outside and running some fitness classes outside. We'll do that for the summer months. And as we'll start with 10, and then we'll move to as our capacity at those spaces as well. The teams like rugby, soccer, and football will be able to train outside. And we're also looking at to bring out our portable hoops for the basketball teams to be outside. So we are trying to be very creative in allowing our teams to train and our students to participate. The province also announced that we will be able to deliver our summer camp programs. So we are planning to deliver summer camps. We have the guidelines, although the legislation hasn't come out. So that will commence on June 28th. So we're really excited to be offering our children's programs again over the summer. And then the good news yesterday, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter and through the OUA, the announcement that we are planning league sport in the fall. So we're very excited. We've worked very hard on scheduling. We have realigned our schedules. So we are not traveling overnight. So we'll be realigned to be playing schools closer to us. So we're not staying overnight. We're going to travel there, travel back. We're now looking at hosting protocols that will involve what we're doing with dressing rooms or not using dressing rooms. Time between games, if they're double headers, will be stretched to allow for cleaning. So we are working on all the protocols now for return to play, which is nice to say because we've been talking about return to train, and now we're talking about return to play. So our teams will be back out on the field in the High Performance Center, which is outside, over the summer, getting ready for play in the fall. We know that we may have to push things out a little bit. RSCQ came out with a regular schedule. We know that may not happen, but we're ready to push that out as well. So that's really good news. More good news is vaccinations are on the rise. COVID numbers are on the decline. So that's all really good news. And our university is certainly planning to come back in September and deliver in-person academic programming. There will be some online for the larger classes. It's a lot of work that's behind the scenes to get ready to come back this fall, but everybody's working to make sure that we're in person for the most part come the fall. So that's all the good news, and I hope to see everybody, and that we can have spectators in the stands, even if it's at limited capacity. That I get to see all of the alumni and our fans this year as well. Thank you, and I'm turning it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that, and we're going to get into some Q&A. There are a lot of comments that have come up in the chat session, especially welcoming Nadia to the fold, into the program and to the school. I'm going to ask a question to Nadia. And here's something interesting. 2 years ago, before the pandemic started, St. Mark High School in Ottawa started a women's or a girls' high school football program, and they had 98 girls. And this is a small high school. They had 98 girls come out and want to play football. And I think back to when I was at Carleton a generation ago, and as Jen alluded to, there was no women's hockey, there was no women's soccer, there was no women's rugby. Those sports were all basically in their infancy stages, a lot where women's football is now. But do you see on the women's side of things, participation-wise, do you see women's football growing? And do you think that women's football growth will lead to more people being accepted or more women being accepted as coaches and officials in men's football?
Definitely. And talking about St. Mark's, I was at the game with the girls at TD Place. That was the first game. That was a Friday afternoon, super sunny. They were all thrilled to play at TD Place and have also as well CFL player that were here as well to do like a little station. Something that I learned from them, it's a couple, like I think 2 weeks after we did an operation. It's called Girls Who Play. That was 600 U16 around all the high school in Ottawa, all in TD Place, and then they all have to try all the sports. What I did with them, yes, I know, but I know they know. So what I did with them is I highlight them. I say, okay, we're gonna do that, but you're gonna take care of that station. You're gonna take care of that station. I'm just gonna look. If you need help, I'll be here. So that's what we were saying, representation. I think the more you give to the women, the more they will be willing to say, okay, I'm independent, I can do it. The thing is, in the past, a lot of people were saying, oh, women cannot do that, women cannot do that, but now they can. Like, there is no doubt they can. Like, nobody could question that. So for sure, we have women, and for referee, like everybody will have a place where they want. Like, some of the women will prefer referee, maybe some of the women prefer coach, or some of the women will prefer more a sport administration, or even more on equipment side, like some of those type of work that people forget that we still know the equipment, even if we don't have the equipment on our, like we don't use the equipment ourselves.
Okay, thanks, Nadia. And I'm going to put Rebecca on the spot because she's been asking questions all night and she hasn't got a chance to answer any. But Rebecca, why don't you tell us about how you got involved in rugby and how you became a rugby player and what your journey was to get to Carleton?
Yeah, of course. So I started playing rugby in high school. So back home in Belleville, the Bay of Quinte is a really strong rugby area. So I was coached by some pretty awesome coaches there, and started in grade 10. Shout out to my mom who's watching right now. She actually told me I wasn't allowed to play rugby in high school. And being me, I didn't listen. And I came home and I said, hey, Mom, awkward. I made the rugby team and kind of ran with it there. So for me, it was between playing competitive basketball or playing rugby. And I ended up choosing rugby to play in university, and earned a scholarship at Carleton and got my start there. And it was one of those sports where there's no difference between the men's and women's game. So like in men's, in hockey, women aren't allowed to body check, or in like men's hockey, they can. Where in rugby, I really thought was cool was we were the same. We were treated equally. You're just a rugby player. You're not a women's rugby player or a men's rugby player. You just play rugby. So for me, that was like the coolest part of rugby. And yeah, I got my start in high school, and obviously Carleton has been an amazing experience. I've had so much leadership opportunity and had a chance to grow the game. And I've played provincially a few times and got to represent Ontario at a couple of national championships. So yeah.
Rugby is known. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to compare the men's and women's game here, but off the field, the men's rugby game is known for not just what goes on the field, but the camaraderie and the bond between teammates. It's probably stronger in rugby than any other sport we have. And is the women's rugby game as a sport, is it the same? Do you have that special bond and camaraderie that kind of equals the men's side of things?
I mean, I'm going to say that it's probably stronger than what goes on the men's side. And I think that's because we have this unique experience of being in a super male dominated sport. And like I said, having the rules the same on both the men's and women's sides, it's just a phenomenal experience for women. And rugby is this crazy opportunity for women to get to play these like super physical, dominating sport. So that bond that we have, you're bleeding with your teammates on the field. And I can't think of any kind of sport that kind of has that same experience. And yeah, I think if we're not equal to the men's side, we're even more equal. Like, you know, especially in the summer when there's social games, you buy a beer for your opposite. You know, it's like I play against girls that I played with provincially, and then you see each other across the field, and it's kind of like, hey, I'm about to tackle you, but like, nice seeing you. You know, I remember you from last summer, kind of thing. So, rugby has this phenomenal family sisterhood, and the girls that I play with and that I have played with, they're going to be my friends for the rest of my life. You know, they'll be at my wedding, and they'll be the, you know, my kids' godparents kind of thing. So yeah, answer your question, yes.
Okay, well, thanks again, Roberta, and great job tonight. Before I throw it back to Trevor, just want to give a shout out to Colin Elliott for the tremendous work he did behind the scenes. Colin, what Annie Lennox was to the Eurythmics, you are to Thursday Night Live. Thank you again, and thank you to Jared, who was helping you out. And Trevor, now back to you.
And thank you very much, Jeff. Yes, definitely want to echo the comment on Colin, who got his vaccine yesterday, is feeling terrible and pulled through to pull this off here tonight. Thanks, Colin. Absolutely fantastic job, and kudos to everyone. You know, how fortunate we are as Ravens for Life, we say, to have our athletics in the capable hands of this fierce group of women. Thank you all for all you do to guide this amazing operation. And, you know, it's so encouraging to see us growing, being better, trying to be better, and inspiring others to be better. And as Nadia said, to say we can. Special shout out and big props to our star student athlete, Roberta Drummond, for bringing the A game again and again and again, and for all the guests and hosts for playing a special part in this show. Thank you as well to all the people at home for tuning in all winter and spring long, and we cannot wait to see you again in the near future. As Jen said, for perhaps some in-person things in September. You know, please join us again for a special program July 8th called Raven Road to the Olympics, when former Ravens athlete and veteran CBC Olympics and Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster and Gemini Award winner Mark Lee will join us to share stories from his coverage of 18 Olympic Games, and also takes time to interview current and former Raven Olympians. You're not going to want to miss that one. So that's it for now. So long, and be well, everyone.